So after San Diego Comic-Con, we now have all the films announced that are going to be coming our way as a part of Marvel Phase 4, and with that, now seems like a good of a time as any to stop and rank all 5 of them in level of enjoyment and excitability. So this is a slightly different video to what we typically do here. We're not going to be talking about the movies in terms of quality, because obviously they're not out yet. We haven't even seen any footage from them yet, but we are going to be ranking them in terms of how excited I am personally about each of them. I'm not going to be including the TV shows that were announced. I'm not going to be including, the Disney Plus series, just because I feel like they're their own separate entity a little bit at this point, even though they are going to be a part of the wider MCU, unlike, say, the Marvel Netflix shows. We haven't really seen any of them yet, and we haven't even seen an example of them, so it's kind of difficult to really gauge an interest of how good they're going to be, or how they're even going to structure, because we haven't seen them yet. But in regards to this video, it's purely going to be about the movies, the 5 movies that were announced as a part of Marvel Phase 4, so let's jump into the ranking. Coming in at number 5, we have Black Widow. Now, Black Widow, for me, is the least exciting of the 5 because it's the one that we kind of are the most familiar with, if that makes sense. We've obviously, Black Widow has been a character who's been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Phase 1, and we've seen her very early on. She was in one of the very first films. She was in Iron Man 2, and she's had quite a journey among the MCU, but we just are very familiar with her at this point, and I imagine that this movie is going to be in a similar vein to films we had seen before, or at least action sequences that we had seen her in previous films, whether you're looking at Avengers films or Captain America the Winter Soldier. I feel like the Black Widow solo film is going to be something that is going to be a bit more familiar with fans in comparison to a lot of the other movies that we're going to be getting in this phase, and that to me just isn't as exciting as the new stuff that we're going to be seeing later on in the phase, and that is why for me this falls at the bottom of the list. Also, although the cast is great in this film, I feel like the Black Widow movie is a little too late at this point. I said this when it was announced. I feel like if they were going to do a Black Widow solo movie, they should have done it in Phase 1 or even Phase 2 after Captain America the Winter Soldier. They shouldn't have done it now. It feels like it's a bit too late, and for me personally, out of all of them, this was by far the least exciting announcement. Coming in at number 4, we have The Eternals. Now, The Eternals is an interesting one. We kind of knew about it before going into the announcement. We kind of knew that this movie was coming. The Eternals, for me, the reason why it's this far down is because although the cast is incredible for this film, like when you're looking at people like, Richard Madden and, of course, Angelina Jolie, Kamal Nanjiani, we have an amazing cast for this. Brian Tyree Henry, it's just such a fantastic cast for this movie, and also a fantastic director in Chloe Zhao, who, of course, directed The Rider. There's just a lack of kind of tangibility with this movie, if that makes sense. There's a lack of footage, and obviously they've barely even started filming it yet. I don't think they have started filming it yet, but I feel like, I need to wait and see this movie. I need to actually see something, to actually get an idea of what it's going to look like. There was some concept art released, which did look pretty cool, but I don't really have an actual physical idea in my head of what this movie is going to look like, and that is why I'm a bit more reserved with it in comparison to the other films, because the other films I can get a picture in my head of kind of how they're going to look on screen, but The Eternals is something completely off the wall and completely different, and I don't know how that's going to translate onto the screen, so I have to wait and see till I actually get a little bit of actual footage and evidence from the movie before I allow myself to get a bit more excited about it. Either way, I'm still incredibly excited about The Eternals. The cast is great. I'm really excited about all these movies, but for me, The Eternals, it's the weirdest one of the 4 of the 5, and I just don't quite know how it's going to translate on screen, and that's why it falls at number 4. Coming in at number 3, we have Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, if you would have asked me before this announcement, this might have been my most anticipated film. Thor: Ragnarok is by far in my top 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. It's by far one of my favorites. So I think bringing Taika back to not only write but also direct the film is a great choice. Also, Chris Hemsworth's coming back. Tessa Thompson will be returning as Valkyrie, but they've also said that Valkyrie is going to be looking for her new Queen of Asgard, confirming that she is indeed an LGBT character, which is awesome. And then we also have the biggest announcement of them all. Natalie Portman is going to be returning to the Thor franchise as Jane Foster, but also this time as Lady Thor, or Mighty Thor, as she's being called for this movie. This is incredibly exciting news. I was not expecting this at all. This was by far, other than the Blade announcement, this was the biggest surprise for the Comic-Con Phase 4 slate. I did not expect Natalie Portman to ever return to this franchise, and it never seemed like her heart was in it, which I know seems like a harsh comment, but it just never really felt like she was in it. Especially in the Dark World, I never really felt like she wanted to be there. But given the fact that she now has this promise of, oh, you're going to be playing Thor in the next movie, that is a very, very exciting concept for Natalie Portman. And just the idea of them doing that storyline from the comics of Jane Foster potentially having cancer and then getting attached to Mjolnir, it could be a very, very interesting story. And obviously with this title, Thor: Love and Thunder, that kind of explains why they're going down that route with that specific title. I think it's a great idea. I'm very excited. Again, if Ragnarok is anything to go by, this is going to be a fantastic film. And I think bringing Taika back to not only direct the film once again, but also to write the film could lead to a very, very interesting and very, very witty script, which is not really something that we've seen in the MCU at this point, is something to that extent. So I'm very, very excited for Thor: Love and Thunder. Coming in at number 2, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this just shot up my ranking as soon as the announcement came because this is great. I mean, I'm a big fan of the original Doctor Strange. I think that's a really fun MCU film. It's by no means one of the absolute top tier Marvel films, but it's definitely a fun one and definitely a good introduction to Stephen Strange as a character. But what got me really hyped about this is not only the fact that Scott Derrickson, who is returning to direct the film, saying that this is going to be the first scary MCU film. I don't know how scary it can really be, given the fact that this movie is going to be PG-13, undoubtedly. But I feel like him just going with that, and given the fact he comes from a horror background, that's incredibly exciting for me. Also, the title, In the Multiverse of Madness, that is a brilliant title, and it's also inferring that we are going to be exploring the multiverse in this movie, which, you know, we thought we were going to get a bit of that in Spider-Man Far From Home. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. But here, we're actually going to be fully exploring the multiverse, which was teased in the first Doctor Strange film. So that's very, very exciting. Now, the most exciting announcement for this movie definitely came from the form of Elizabeth Olsen joining the cast and reprising her role as Scarlet Witch in this film. This is going to be a team-up movie between Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. This is great. I'm so happy about this. Obviously, this is going to tie into the WandaVision TV series on Disney+. And I feel like that this particular move, bringing Scarlet Witch over to the Doctor Strange universe, is going to be great. I feel like them two together, I don't think they've had really any scenes together in the movies as of yet. Obviously, they had the big battle at the end of Endgame, but they didn't really interact in that scene. So to actually give them their own movie is really exciting, especially because it has been confirmed by Kevin Feige that Scarlet Witch does actually practice the same magic as Doctor Strange. She's just incredibly untrained in comparison to him. I feel like putting them in the same movie together, exploring the multiverse. We know Nightmare is going to be the villain of this movie. I think this could be something so unique and so different. Like the first Doctor Strange, I think was pretty restrained in regards to how wild it went. But this movie sounds like it's just going to go completely for it. It's just going to, you know, Scott Derrickson's going in the horror direction. We have Scarlet Witch coming in, who can be a pretty horrific character. I feel like this is going to be a great move for this movie, for this franchise. And me personally, this just became one of my most anticipated Marvel films. And the Marvel Phase 4 movie that I'm most excited about is Shang-Chi. Now, Shang-Chi, I think the reason why I'm the most excited about it is because I feel like this could be one of the most unique Marvel films. I feel like this is something that could really stand out amongst the MCU. A common complaint you get with the MCU is that a lot of the films, especially the origin story films, you know, things like Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, they all feel very, very similar, and they all feel like they're following a specific template, and also that they all look and feel kind of similar in a tone. I feel like Shang-Chi could be going in a completely different direction. I feel like Shang-Chi could be a lot more in line with Black Panther in the sense that it takes a completely different tone and a completely different direction for the MCU, which will make it stand out among its other peers. And I feel like Shang-Chi is the perfect platform to do that. You have a great casting, which, although I'm not really familiar with the guy's body of work at this point, I feel like seeing him on stage at, you know, the Marvel event definitely gave a really good shot as to what he's going to be and how passionate he's going to be about this role. Also, Destin Daniel Cretton returning, or just coming to direct the film, of course, the director of Short Term 12, is a fantastic choice for this film as well. So I feel like mixing all that with this kung fu action, then bringing in the 10 rings and how that's been seeded in the MCU up to this point, bringing in the actual version of the Mandarin, properly wrapping up that story from the Marvel one-shot, All Hail the King. There's a lot of really extremely exciting elements, and like I say, taking this movie in a completely different location to what we're used to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I feel like it's a very, very different looking, different sounding, very dynamic feeling MCU film that we've not seen at this point, and that's why for me, Shang-Chi has got to be my #1 film that I am most excited about going into Marvel Phase 4. So there you have it. There's my ranking of all 5 Marvel films coming our way in Phase 4. Make sure you leave your ranking in the comment section down below. Which MCU film of Phase 4 are you most looking forward to? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. We can have a cool discussion about this because it's always fun to talk about the Marvel movies and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially at this point. It's such an exciting point at the time. We're in the transition phase from Phase 3 to Phase 4. It's going to be very, very exciting. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. It'll help me out a lot. Also, share this video with any other film fans, any other film fanatics who you think may enjoy my content and my channel. I would really appreciate that. And with all that said, guys, hope to see you guys again in my next video.